You're listening to the I'm Busy Being Awesome podcast with Paula Engebretson, episode number 281. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. How are you? Today, we are diving into a topic that I know so many of us can relate to and probably need right now, especially if you're listening to this in real time during what can be a very bustling holiday season. And this is the topic of rest. Now, if you are anything like me, the mere idea of slowing down and actually resting might make your body and your brain feel incredibly restless. Sometimes just thinking about rest for some of us, we start feeling super restless. And I know for myself, even when I know, intellectually at least, that I really need a break, it is so hard to slow down long enough to take it. Let me tell you, pushing through exhaustion instead of resting, that is my default setting. I've been working to reset that default, but when things get intense, that's where I go. That is my go-to, is overworking. It is such an automatic response for me, especially when I'm not intentionally slowing down and making rest a priority. And honestly, even when I do pause to rest, that restlessness kicks in hard and my brain starts saying all the things. I should probably do a little bit more before we slow down. I need to make sure I complete these things. I want to be a little more productive. I have this never-ending to-do list. That's not going to get done if I slow down. There are so many other things I should be doing, and so on and so forth. We know these thoughts, right? And so, of course, that break that we want to take, or at least part of us wants to take, it's hard for it to actually feel restful when our mind is chattering the whole time in the background, telling us we should be doing the other things. And then, again, this is just the inner workings of my brain when I am not slowing down and coaching myself. On the other side of that whole spinning fiasco, if I decide, you know what, I'm going to just keep going. I'll just rest later. I'm just going to do the things. I'm just going to work a little bit more. Then, even if I get the thing done, I end up feeling really frustrated and disappointed with myself because I'm not actually slowing down and taking the break that I wanted. It's like I'm in this lose-lose situation if I don't actually intentionally coach my brain. If I'm just kind of in default mode, if I'm in automatic mode, my brain tells me I can't slow down. There's too much to do. I can't rest. Rest is too hard. So then I'll try and push through. And then on the other side, I'm really mad at myself for not slowing down and actually resting. It is a little bit silly. Does this sound familiar? I don't think it's just me. It might be, but I don't think it's just me. And here's the thing. I know that many of us with ADHD brains seem to struggle with these similar types of contradictory thoughts. In fact, one of the biggest obstacles that I hear from my clients and from those of you in the community when we connect over on Instagram or in my inbox is this idea that there's just not enough time to rest. I don't have time to rest. There's too much to do. We are always racing against the clock. So many of us constantly feel behind and thinking we have way more to do, not enough time to do it. And because many of us have brains that take a little bit longer to do things, or we need to process through things, whatever, sometimes stuff just takes longer. And so many of us are struggling with what can seem like a very real reality of I just don't have enough time because everything takes me longer. And then you add traits into the mix that can make rest even more challenging. I'm talking about things like hyperfocus. We finally get into the groove of work and we don't want to stop because cognitive flexibility is so uncomfortable when we have to shift out. We're not super flexible, right? Plus, many of us have this fear of like, but I finally got into it. I don't want to stop. If I stop, I might not come back. I finally got in the groove. I finally got on the on-ramp. I'm on the freeway. Don't make me get off, right? And we will battle with that. We're worried we're going to lose it. Or our all or nothing thinking loves to come in. And our brain is like, well, if I'm going to take a rest, I need the whole day to decompress, to fully decompress. And I certainly can't fit that in because I have to do all the things on my list. So taking a 20-minute break to read a chapter of a book or to go for a walk with your dog or whatever just seems out of the question because it's not enough. We get in that all or nothing where, 20 minutes, that's not going to do anything. I need a whole day or a whole week. Plus, I can't take that time off because I have to do everything on my list immediately. We just get stuck in that all zone or the nothing zone. We have a hard time seeing that gray. And so we stay trapped believing that we have to check everything off the list before we can rest. But the annoying truth is that that list never ends, right? It's true. And then there's something else that I see quite often as well. And this is the idea that we need to, quote unquote, earn our rest. Like it's only okay to take a break once I've done all the things, or once I've caught up, or once I've completed this project. But again, that never happens because the to-do list never ends. We are brilliant idea machines. There will never be a time when we don't have a new idea to pursue. You know what? That's not a problem. That's kind of an amazing thing, as long as we can learn how to incorporate the rest. Because if we don't, rest ends up seeming nearly impossible to prioritize, especially when we feel like there's just so much we could be doing or should be doing or want to be doing. We tell ourselves, I need to earn the rest. And it might not sound quite like that. Your brain might not literally label it as earn, but it might. Or it might say, well, I don't deserve it yet. Or it might be a little sneakier. Oh, I have to get these things done first. Then I can rest. Then I can take a break. And then let's add just one more layer on top of all of this, shall we? I know a lot of us ADHD brains also struggle to even know what rest looks like for us. We have never given ourselves the space to actually figure it out. So when we pause and we go, okay, well, what would that even look like? Our brain goes, I don't know. I don't know what rest is. It's not like I ever have time for it. How could I possibly rest when there's so much on my list? I don't even know where to start. Don't even get out of here with that rest idea. And all of this is what I want to talk about with you today. I want to help us reframe the idea of rest and help our brains to genuinely understand and our nervous systems to fully understand. So it's not just up here intellectually in our head. We fully understand that rest is essential. It is not just a quote unquote nice to have if we've been productive enough. And in fact, today I'm really excited to share with you a perspective on rest that had a profound impact on me. It really changed the way I think about rest and knowing how to rest and making time for rest. It was really empowering for me in my approach to rest generally. And the quote comes from Abraham Joshua Heschel, and it inspired a concept that I'm going to share with you today called complementary rest. Okay, so this is what we're going to talk about today. First, this quote that really had a profound impact on me and the way I think about rest, and then this concept of complementary rest that came from the inspiration of this quote. And then at the very end of the episode, I'll also, of course, share some easy steps to help you start integrating a little more rest in your life today. Okay, so my hope is that by the end of this episode, you will feel more empowered to really embrace rest as a necessary part of your life, not something you need to earn, not something you need to do after you check off all the things, not something you need to justify. It is a necessary part of your life that is just woven into the mix. All right, so let's dive in. Now, as we know, again, at least intellectually, rest is so powerful. It is a core part of functioning well as a human, okay? And it directly impacts everything from our energy levels to how we manage our emotions to how well our executive functions are functioning throughout the day. When we allow ourselves the space to rest, we allow our executive functions to recharge. And this means that we increase our ability to plan and prioritize and stay focused and follow through on the tasks that we actually want to do when we are rested. Again, you've heard me use this analogy before, but it's like plugging in our phone. We are in low battery mode, and so we need to plug ourselves in, charge that battery back up. Rest allows us to do that. Rest gets us back to that 100%, so we don't have to live in low power mode. I want us to have the full green bar on our phone, fully charged. I don't want us running on fumes. And I think especially at this time of year, again, yes, rest is great for enhancing our focus, but it's also crucial for managing our emotions. When we are exhausted, when we're burned out, it is so much harder to keep things in perspective. It's so much harder to remember to actually use the tools that we know to help us manage our big emotions. When we are exhausted, it's such a heavier lift. Every little bump in the road feels like this huge mountain to overcome. And rest helps us to regulate those emotions so that we're able to navigate obstacles with greater ease. We're less overwhelmed. We're less reactive. It gives us that grounding that we need so we can respond thoughtfully instead of getting caught up in the spin, the frustration, what have you. And let me tell you, especially during the holiday season, this is huge. Yes, please. And then finally, no surprise here, rest plays a key role in our energy regulation, which is a big deal. Our energy levels can kind of be all over the place, swinging from hyperfocus to sheer exhaustion and everywhere in between. But with that regular intentional rest, we give ourselves that chance to stay a bit more even-keeled. It's about kind of reducing the extremes. I'm always thinking of a very widely swinging pendulum. Let's bring that pendulum so it's not swinging so drastically. So we're not constantly bouncing between all in, all out, burning out, going full steam ahead. Okay, let's find a bit more of that middle ground. And this is where I think it gets interesting, because rest doesn't have to mean doing nothing. Okay, I think a lot of us tend to think about rest as, all right, well, that means I just need to take a nap, or I need to sit quietly or read a book or what have you. Now, those are all great forms of rest. I'm all in if that feels restful for you, but that's not true for everyone. And this is where I want to bring in that incredible quote that I mentioned toward the beginning of the episode by Abraham Joshua Heschel. Okay, this is the quote that really shifted how I think about rest. And the quote is, if you work with your mind, Sabbath with your hands. If you work with your hands, Sabbath with your mind. I'm pausing here to think about this. If you work with your mind, Sabbath with your hands. If you work with your hands, Sabbath with your mind. And when I'm thinking about Sabbath, I'm thinking about rest. If you work with your hands, rest with your mind. If you work with your mind, rest with your hands. And this brings me to the idea of complementary rest. Like I said, I want to introduce this concept to you that I've been playing with called complementary rest. And this is about choosing a type of rest that balances the kind of energy that we usually put out during the day. I like to think about it as creating a bit of harmony between your work and your rest. So for example, if you spend the majority of your day in mentally engaged, high executive function demanding tasks, thinking through things, planning things, analyzing, then rest might be something that looks more physical or hands-on. Maybe you're gardening, maybe you're cooking, maybe you're crocheting, you're going for a walk, you're doing yoga, right? Something that allows you to rest your mind while doing something engaging with your hands, but engaging in a way that feels restorative and grounding. Or on the flip side, maybe your work throughout the day is actually quite physical. Maybe you are chasing around toddlers all day. Maybe you are in the field, whatever you're doing, you're on your feet, you're moving around, doing different types of tasks. Then rest might look like something that's more mentally engaging, but your body can rest. Maybe you are reading, maybe you're listening to a podcast, maybe you're meditating. You're letting your body relax while giving your mind something calming to focus on. Now, as I've alluded to, what I love about this approach for the ADHD brain is that it breaks us away from the idea that rest means total stillness. Because for many of us, the traditional idea of rest and quote unquote doing nothing actually just feels kind of stressful because we're often wired to crave that stimulation. So the thought of having to sit quietly or lie down and not do anything can feel nearly impossible. So we reach for our phone and scroll, which is not usually the most restful, right? And I love the idea of complementary rest because I find it to be very empowering. It doesn't force us to go into that box of rest means stillness. It can, if that's what you need, but it doesn't mean 1 + 1 = 2. You must do this. Instead, complementary rest allows us to recharge in a way that feels natural and engaging and grounding and restorative. It gives us permission to rest in a way that aligns with who we are and how we show up in the world. And again, as an ADHD brain, this has been a game changer for me. We're not just avoiding burnout. We are making rest feel doable and actually enjoyable. We're personalizing it to our unique situation. Rest can be something that we actually look forward to rather than something we have to do to check off the list. That's kind of the opposite of what we're trying to do with rest here. We don't want it to be another to-do list item. So what I invite you to play around with is a quick check-in, kind of matching your rest with your work. Let's talk about how you can uncover the type of rest that would feel most supportive for you in this season, in this moment. So here's how it works. Let's start by reflecting on the type of work that you've been doing recently. Again, Heschel's quote encourages us to balance our energy with that contrasting form of rest. So if you work with your mind, Sabbath or rest with your hands. If you work with your hands, Sabbath or rest with your mind. So think about the primary work you've been doing. What have you been engaged in? As you look at that, we can then uncover the type of rest that will feel most grounding, most effective to help you recharge. So if you've been doing a lot of mentally engaging work, if you've been working with your mind, analyzing data, planning projects, problem solving, you likely want to give your mind some rest and instead engage your body. Let your body take the lead. Complementary rest here might look like physical, hands-on activities that aren't intensely demanding, but it's the body that leads the movement and is not requiring intense mental focus. So maybe you're doing some stretching or you're gardening, you're coloring, you're crocheting or knitting or doodling. These types of activities allow your mind to settle while your body gets a chance to gently move about. You can work with your hands. Now, on the flip side, if you've been doing a lot of physically demanding work, you're moving around, you are on your feet all day, you're chasing around kiddos, you're handling physical tasks, you're doing a lot of repetitive work. The rest that your body might be craving is to gently engage your mind while your body restores. So in this situation, you might try something that brings in mental focus without that physical exertion component. So you might be reading a book. You might be watching some low stakes TV show. Maybe you're journaling. Maybe you're doing a puzzle or something. By shifting to a mental activity, you're allowing your body to unwind, to be still while your mind is engaged. Now, I'm going to add a third component here. And this is if you've been feeling incredibly emotionally engaged. So let's say you've been doing a lot of emotionally intense work and you're feeling drained or disconnected. That might be a sign where you need some rest for what you might call your heart or your soul. Okay? This is about filling up your emotional cup. So maybe you want to connect with a friend or journal to process through some emotion or do some sort of hobby that brings you incredible joy, a sense of fulfillment. This type of rest helps us feel grounded and supported in the ways that go beyond the mental or the physical, but instead the emotional, the soul, the heart. Now, as I'm talking about these three categories, I also want to make note of a different podcast episode I have. So if your brain is like, this sounds really helpful, and I want to go even deeper, I encourage you to check out my episode where I talk about these 7 types of rest to avoid ADHD burnout. Okay. I will link to that episode in the show notes. Each of the different types addresses a specific need, whether it's physical or mental or sensory rest or whatever. And that can help you find even more specifically the type of rest that you might need. But I love this quick check-in inspired by Heschel's quote because it gives you such a powerful starting point. When you're feeling depleted and you're not really sure why, you can pause and check in. Hold on. Have I been working with my mind? Have I been working with my body? What needs rest? Do I need rest for my mind, my body, my heart? And then start something small. Maybe it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes of that intentional rest time of the complementary category. I'm telling you, it is so amazing how even a short break can really shift our energy and give us that fresh perspective. All right, so we have explored how to match the rest with the work that we've been doing. And I want to just leave you with a couple of actionable steps to help you put this into practice. Okay. Remember, rest doesn't have to be this huge, overwhelming thing. It doesn't need to be a full day event or a full week event. We can start small. We can keep it flexible. So step 1, take a minute to reflect on the type of work you've been doing. Are you working primarily with your mind? Are you thinking, planning, analyzing, problem solving? Or have you been physically active, moving around on your feet, doing? Maybe it's work that's feeling emotionally draining, leaving you feeling a bit disconnected, worn out in your heart, in your soul, in your emotions. Okay. This is a quick check-in, couple of minutes tops, and it's a powerful way to help you identify the type of complementary rest that might feel best to help you recharge. So the next time you're feeling drained, the next time you're feeling overwhelmed, you're just off, pause and ask yourself, what is the type of work you've been engaging in? Then choose that complementary rest to balance out your energy. And start small, okay? You don't have to overhaul your whole day. You don't have to commit to this huge rest period to make it work. Aim for 5 or 10 minutes if that's what you have. For those of us stuck in the all or nothing thinking, believing, I don't have time for any of this. There's no way I can fit it in. When we keep it short, we can often get our brain on board. It feels a little more manageable. It's easier to make it happen. And then the brain will start seeing, usually, the positive impact on the other side, and we'll start shifting that balance. Okay. And also, please remember that rest is flexible. It doesn't have to be one all the time. It will probably switch up depending on your season of life, depending on the type of work you're doing. That's what I love so much about Heschel's reminder. If you're working with your mind, Sabbath with your hands. If you're working with your hands, Sabbath with your mind. It's all about finding what you need in that moment. So give yourself permission to play around with it, to see what you need, see what feels restorative. And finally, I just want to acknowledge again that it can be really hard to do this. For so many of us ADHD brains, we are used to being in go mode. We are always trying to quote unquote make up for lost time or being behind. And this idea of resting, it can feel almost wrong. But the truth is you deserve rest. You don't have to earn your rest. Taking a break isn't lazy. It's not indulgent. Truly, it is one of the most productive things you can do for yourself if your brain needs that to get on board. Okay. Rest is one of the most critical forms of support. It's what allows us to recharge, to show up as who we are, and to tackle what is ahead with that clearer mind and that refreshed state. And when we can embrace rest, we're not just giving ourselves a break, we are setting ourselves up to keep moving forward sustainably so we can get off that burnout cycle. So if that little voice in your head is saying, well, but you should probably be doing something a little more productive. Let me just do this one more thing. Let me just keep doing this other thing. Oh, I can't rest until I've done that. Hold on. Remind your brain. Now, I hear you. I really do. But let's give this a try. Just this week. Let's see how it goes. If we lean into the idea that rest is actually productive. It is essential to staying focused and calm and grounded, especially for our ADHD brains. Okay? You are giving yourself the support you need to keep showing up in the way that you want to. So as we wrap up, let's take a minute to come back to the heart of the episode, which is Heschel's quote. If you work with your mind, Sabbath with your hands. If you work with your hands, Sabbath with your mind. This idea of complementary rest is such a powerful reminder that rest is not about, quote unquote, doing nothing. It's about doing what we actually need to recharge. Now, if you want to take this work even deeper, if you want to build a rest routine that genuinely works for your ADHD brain, I would love to help you do it. Maybe you want support in figuring out what kinds of rests are actually the most restorative for you. Or perhaps you're looking for strategy and support in creating a schedule that actually balances productivity and rest and that creates space for this rest that you keep hearing about. Your brain's like, okay, yeah, where's that going to fit, Paula? I'll help you find that. Okay. If you are ready to work with your brain using Heschel's wisdom to support yourself without burnout, let's talk. You can learn more about both my one-on-one and small group coaching options through the link in the show notes, or you can head to I'mBusyBeingAwesome.com/coaching to learn more about both. And as you go into your week, remember, you deserve rest. And I am here cheering you on every step of the way. All right, my friends, that's going to do it for us this week. And don't forget, if you want to streamline the rest of your holiday season and focus on what matters most to you and your loved ones this season, grab my holiday season blueprint. It is packed with over 70 pages of resources and guides to help you shape the season in a way that works best for you. You can grab it now through the link in the show notes or head to I'mBusyBeingAwesome.com/holiday blueprint, all one word. Also, do you know someone who would love to learn a little bit more about how they can rest in a way that works for their brain? If you know someone who could really benefit from this message today, would you be a rock star and share this episode with them? You could send it to them in a text message or snap a screenshot and share it on your Instagram stories. If you do that, be sure to tag me at I'mBusyBeingAwesome so I can give you a shout out. Whatever you do, please know that I so appreciate you for tuning in and for helping me get these strategies to even more busy, awesome brains who need them. Until next time, keep being awesome. I'll talk with you soon.